Radha Kunja Bihari Gopijan Vallabha Giridhari Jai Gopijan Vallabha Giridhari Jasodhanandana Raja Janarajana Jasodhanandana Raja Janarajana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. We're reading today from the second canto, this wonderful chapter called Purusha Sukta Confirmed. It's a very delightful chapter, but you really have to concentrate on it. We're going to read from the first verse. Do I have up to 16? 1 to 16? Just 16 verses, no problem. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Let's chant together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam agirayat nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavate raya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead divine, unto Nanda, Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Jiva Vasudeva, the author, and Srila Prabhupada, the translator and commentator. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service unto the pure devotees, all the troubles into the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised for transcendental is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Second canto ki jai, and 6th chapter, Purusha Sukta Confirmed. Number 1. Okay, so all 16 verses is a little bit of a challenge because they're detailed descriptions of the universal form of the Lord and how he's pervading everything. But we'll do our best, okay? So let's just read through them all 16 and then we'll go back. We're going to concentrate on verse 1 if we get back to it. Okay, so Papa Priyaji, would you like to start with the first verse, please?
Lord Brahma said, "The mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people."
Okay, so thank you. So before we continue on, let's just remember here that this description of the universal form is to help us remember and see Krishna, his hand and his potencies behind every single thing that we interact with, and many things that we don't personally interact with, but that Krishna's hand is there, his potency is there, and because he is the source of it, we are also able to utilize that potency of speaking, seeing, hearing, etc., because he has that, he being the supreme person. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Okay, presence, you want to do number 2, please? And then you just go around the room. I don't know.
His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and of all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Ashwini Kumara demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance.
Because he has a nose and can smell, therefore we have a nose and can smell. But his smelling power and his other sensual powers also produce much more than ours do, So from his breathing power, Ashwini Kumars. Does anybody know anything about the Ashwini Kumars? Some general information about the Ashwini Kumars? Why would they be mentioned here in this particular description? Yeah, they are. They're in charge of medicine. They're the people that the demigods go to when they need to bring back somebody from the dead or other things. Okay, next verse. Whoever would like to volunteer, go right ahead.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound.
So, what are some of the characteristics of his eyes? They glitter, okay. What else? Illuminate. And there's another interesting, was very interesting to me. What else are his eyes the source of? Forms. Because he has eyes, he's generating forms from them. Eyes can see forms. Interesting. That's the object of the eyes. The sense object of the eyes is form. Okay, next one, please.
His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is a generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is a place for performing all kinds of sacrifice.
Next, please, thank you.
Hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores.
Can you see the comparison of this description here, and then also in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna lists his potencies? He's saying that he's providing everything needed for sacrifice. He's the butter, he's the fire, he's the offering. And now here in this one, it particularly mentions that he's the cause of the vegetation, and particularly of those trees which are needed to be used in sacrifice. So everything comes from him. So just consider that when you consider the conditioned soul in the illusory state that they're in. I'm thinking that I'm the center of everything. I'm thinking that, nothing happens but what I want or however I endeavor. It's totally illusion, isn't it? Yeah, it's a very deep illusion, the living entity's ignorance of the presence of the Lord behind everything. Very deep-rooted illusion. China Shringa.
The Lord's arms are the productive fields of the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass.
7.
You got it. Thus the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear.
Just see the potency of the Lord. Protection from all kinds of fear, not just for us, but from all living entities on all the planets. Number 8, please.
The Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, brains, and procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting.
Elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, it says that because there's a covering on the genitals that makes it seem like it's a pleasant activity, it takes away the distress of the results of getting children and the endeavor that one has to go through. He's got it all down. He's got everything covered. Go ahead. Tricks everyone by that candy coating. Okay, let's go on. 9.
O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
Etc. Everything comes from the Lord. Everything's there present in the Lord, and because it exists in the Lord, we have those facilities also. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that or he says that when we face the Lord, we see the brilliant light of the sun. We can see his existence. But when we turn our back on the Lord, then we're in the shadow. We're not seeing the Lord. But why does that mean that the Lord doesn't exist? Because I've turned my back and I don't see him. He gives the example like when one's standing in the sunlight. If you're standing and facing the sun, everything is illuminated and brilliant. And if you turn your back, then by turning our back, we've created a shadow. We've created a darkness. And therefore, our vision is dependent on which way we turn. If we're turning to the Lord, then we can see everything in relation to him, or try to see everything in relation to him, and see things and utilize things in their proper perspective. But if we've chosen, and that's why we're here, it's not that some people are condemned by the Lord to suffer this and that, but because of our activities, we've chosen to act in a certain way, and we're getting the result of those acts, and therefore our vision is obscured by our mentality. Would you like to continue, please?
The back of the Lord is a place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immortality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains.
So a little bit more description of the backside of the Lord. I was just reading in a little PDF file of various Prabhupada remembrances. And on one particular flight that Srila Prabhupada was on, the pilot had come back into the cabin and was attracted by Srila Prabhupada and asked if he could sit down, and he had some questions for Prabhupada. He was a very thoughtful man. And so he asked Srila Prabhupada, he asked him, among other things, he asked him, why is there evil in the world? And what's the origin of, if God is all good, then why is there evil? And why does it exist if God is all good? And Srila Prabhupada, he gives that explanation that we've turned our back on the Lord, and therefore we're seeing in this way. He didn't create the evil, but it's in that sense, but it's our choice not to see things in the proper perspective, and therefore we get implicated. Want to continue, please?
The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men.
What about that phrase right there? And his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. Can anybody pull out a little bit more from that information?
I was thinking about is like when the Lord does come to annihilate the miscreants, like he will as Kalki and he did one time as Extreme Dave. He just kind of hit the reset button. Is that maybe where those jivas go to rest?
Some of them do, but a little bit further on, what about our three Vishnus? Karana, Garba, and Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Anything that you can correlate information to about this resting place for the material annihilated living entities? There's one, yes. Could you remind me your new name, Nisha? Yeah, Naratana. Okay, Naratana.
Is it? I forget which Vishnu. Maybe Kshirodakshai is like in the heart.
Kshirodakshai Vishnu is a Paramatma in the heart, yes. And
does that have something to do with like?
He has a lot of things to do with it, but the Vishnu that I'm referring to is when referred to by Lord Brahma in the Brahma Samhitas, that the by one breath of the living of Mahavishnu, all the living entities are generated from the skin pores of his body, and on his inhalation, all the universes are withdrawn inside his abdomen until it's time for his next breath, which happens to be 4 million billion years later. But that the living entities, that's the resting place when the universe is annihilated, or at the end of Brahma's day, or end of his night, or the end of his life. The living entities are all reserved inside the belly of the Lord and then come out again. Interesting. Yeah, it does. Yes. Yep. Okay, continuing on. We're on what one? 12 or 11? 12. Okay, 12. Some volunteer, please. Oh, thanks.
So, also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanat Kumara, and Sandana. Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge.
Okay, and here's our last group, 13 to 16. Can someone read that, please?
Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you and Bhava, Shiva, all the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakshas, Bhutaganas, Uragas, Pashus, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all the different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches.
Interesting. It's just like, it's incomprehensible. It's like amazing information. And at the same time, you think, wow, huh? Any comments or thoughts or reactions to this particular one, 13 to 16? Is there anything there that you saw that wasn't included? Did you think of anything that's not included in that description? Think about that for a few days. I don't think you'll find it. It's not included. One thing that struck me, how he was talking about, it's kind of in the middle, when he's talking about the inhabitants of different planetary systems, namely Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakshas, etc., 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 that there's so many different types of living entities. they're grouped according to their likes and dislikes or whatever, or similar karmic, desires and stuff. There's so many different types of living entities. And in the bodily concept of life, we see, oh, they're different, but actually they're all part of the Supreme Lord. There's a unity there, unity and diversity. There's a unity there. And a knowledgeable person will seek to highlight the unity between the diverse living entities. Whereas a person in ignorance wants to say, my group is the best, it's the only one, it's this and that, and you're different from me in this way, therefore you're less than my group. Or, we just make divisions and problems and separation. Whereas Krishna's loving creation and his potencies, his superior potency to create all the different varieties of living entities, because he likes variety. And so therefore, for actually old ladies like myself who, like things to go in a certain way, we need to see things in a broader perspective to encompass the variety of the Lord's creation and to respect the variety of the Lord's creation. Okay, so that's the wrong chapter. Okay, so let's go back to text 1. Couldn't find it. Okay, you can find it. So text 1, go into the Sanskrit. Go into the Sanskrit when you get it there. Brahmovacha. Oh. Sorry, just testing you, that's all. Brahmovacha. Vacham vanir mukham kshetram. Vacham vanir mukham kshetram. Chandasam shapta datava. Chandasam shapta datava. Havya kavyamritan nanam. Havya kavyamritananam. Jiva sarva rasasya cha. Brahmavacha. Vacham vanir mukham kshetram. Chandasam shapta datava. Havya kavyamritananam. Jiva sarva rasasya cha. Please chant. Brahmavacha. Vacham vanir mukham kshetram. Chandasam sapta datava. Jiva sarva rasasya cha. Brahmavacha. Vacham mukham kshetram. Chandasam sapta datava. Jiva sarva rasasya cha. One more. Brahmavacha. Vacham vanir mukham kshetram. Chandasam sapta datava. Havya kavyamritananam. Jiva Sarva Rasasya Cha Brahmavacha. Lord Brahma said, Vacham of the voice, Vane of fire, Mukam the mouth, Chetram the generating center, Chandasam of the Vedic hymns, such as Gayatri, Shapta 7, Datava skin and 6 other layers. Kavya Kavya, offerings for the demigods and the forefathers. Amrita, food for human beings. Ananam, of all sorts of foodstuffs. Jiva, the tongue. Sarva, all. Rasasya, of all delicacies. Cha, also. So here's the translation. Lord Brahma said, by Srila Prabhupada, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. This is a lengthy enough purport. Okay, we'll just say this together. Lord Brahma said, together, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. So just a general impression we can see from the very beginning of this description of the universal form. Sorry. Yanandana Sanakaya Chaksur Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master very kindly forced open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. And sometimes I rush into things and I forget that I have something to say, but actually it's only because I've been able to hear a little bit from Srila Prabhupada that I have anything that's worthy to say. So please, Srila Prabhupada, bless me, that I never forget you and never forget the service unto your lotus feet. Hare Krishna. Okay, so one thing that we can get from this series of verses and many other verses throughout the Bhagavatam and the Gita and everything is that there's definitely a plan behind everything. Whereas we have this tendency to think everything's happening by chance, or this is by chance and it happened like this and that. But actually there's a plan behind everything, an organized plan. And there's a controller. There's people in charge of different things and different aspects of things. We're not independent at all. And that's part of the illusion that one overcomes by repeatedly hearing from the Vedic literatures. We're not independent. We're totally dependent on Krishna. And our illusion is to think that we're independent and I'm working by my choice and my this and my that, and I'm the cause of the results of my activities. No way. Everything is controlled and owned by the Supreme Lord, and we're just his little tiny parts. And when that simple example that Srila Prabhupada gives of the living entity connecting with the Supreme Lord in knowledge, and desiring to serve, that's our constitutional position, and that's our position of happiness. And that false identity that we have, that we're separate from the Lord, and by our endeavor that we're doing things and everything, that's what is the cause, the source of all our miseries and entanglement in the material world. Aside from that, let's start with the purport. Very long. So we can start, and I'll interrupt you every now and then. And please feel free if you have questions or comments to do it. So Presence, you could start, please. Or
the opulences of the universal form of the Lord are described herein. It is said that his mouth is the generating center of all kinds of voices, and its controlling deity is the fire demigod. And his skin and 6 other layers of bodily construction are the representative generating centers of the 7 kinds of Vedic hymns, like the Gayatri. Gayatri is the beginning of all Vedic mantras, and it is explained in the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Since the generating centers are the different parts of the universal form of the Lord, and since the form of the Lord is transcendental to the material creation, it is to be understood that the voice, the tongue, the skin, etc., suggest that the Lord, in his transcendental form, is not without them.
Okay, stop. Thank you. So this is a point that Srila Prabhupada stresses over and over and over and over again throughout his purports, is that everything comes from the Supreme Lord, and therefore the Lord, his supreme existence is a person. He has various energies. He has an impersonal energy that's all pervading, just like the sun has heat and light that spreads throughout the universe. But what's the source of that heat and light? It's the sun. And what's the source of the sun? There's a person in charge of the sun named Vivasvan. So he's ultimately, there's a person behind everything. And who's the source of Vivasvan or whomever's potency? It all comes from Krishna. And therefore, the impersonalist impression that we have that is again a big challenge for us to overcome, and to see how it has, even after we've heard so much from Srila Prabhupada and through the Vedic literatures, we've heard so much how God is a person. Still, if you're thoughtful and you'll just see how that impersonalistic tendency pervades our consciousness so much, and therefore we see differences between people. We treat some people nice because we like them or they're appealing to us. But anyway, there's a connection between all living entities. And by understanding that God's a person and that we're connected with him through that, then that brings that much needed and sorely missed understanding of camaraderie or unity in all living entities. Also, the point about Gayatri. Gayatri is the beginning of all Vedic mantras. So sometimes, Srila Prabhupada, in establishing the ISKCON society, he established first there's Harinam initiation, where one, after having entered the process and followed the process for some months or a year or some reasonable amount of time, makes a vow that yes, this is how I'm going to continue my life. These vows, I'm going to follow this process for the rest of my life. And then we might think, oh yeah, you got a change of name, you've made it. But actually, that's not even considered the beginning. The beginning is considered the Gayatri mantra, when that firm connection with the spiritual master and the chanting of the Gayatri verses are connected. And Prabhupada says, oftentimes in initiation ceremonies, he said, initiation is just the beginning. It's just this opening, showing you the pathway, opening the door, bringing you into the house. It's just the beginning. That whole transformation of consciousness is now you're set up the situation so that transformation of consciousness can properly take place. And we'll continue on. Does someone over that side of the room like to continue? Thanks. Even if you would. Yep, that was. Is it still good? The material voice. Thank you. Okay. That's going to be a challenge throughout this purport, so don't move it until we go on to the next person.
Or the energy of taking in foodstuff is generated originally from the Lord. Such actions are but perverted reflections of the original reservoirs. The transcendental situation is not without spiritual variegatedness.
So, yeah.
In the spiritual world, all the perverted forms of material variegatedness are fully represented, in their original spiritual identity.
Okay, 1 second, but you're going to continue. This is also a very important point, because there's a whole philosophy, a whole group of personalities who think that perfection means nothing, going to nothing, getting rid of all the variegatedness. And Srila Prabhupada is stating here that that whole concept is completely erroneous, because the spiritual world is full of variegatedness, and that it is the source of all variegatedness. And that's our challenge, to get along with all the varieties of creation, and all the varieties of personalities, and all the varieties of whatever, even varieties of food stuff, and see that there's a relation and a proper utilization of all that variety. Okay, can you continue a little bit more, please? Thank you.
The only difference is that the material activities are contaminated by the three modes of material nature, whereas the potencies in the spiritual world are all pure, because they are engaged in unalloyed, transcendental, loving service of the Lord. In the spiritual world, the Lord is the sublime enjoyer of everything, and the living entities there are all engaged in his transcendental loving service, without any contamination of the modes of material nature. The activities in the spiritual world are without any of the difficulties of the material world, but there are no question of impersonal voidness on the spiritual platform, as suggested by the impersonalist. Devotional service is defined in the Narada Pancharatra as follows.
Okay, here's another very important verse that you'll probably become familiar with as the days go by. Let's say it together. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. So it's a very important point that's mentioned here in this verse, Rishikena Rishikesha. So Krishna is one of his names, one of his many unlimited names. It's Rishikesh. He's the controller. He's the master of the senses. And so what's our relationship to him? That using our sensual facilities, then we can use them all in the service of the master of the senses, Krishna. And as one has more and more experience in devotional service, then you can see how that plays out in so many ways. In the fact that, as already been mentioned and will be continued to be mentioned, all the different varieties of the Lord's creation. There's so many different types of personalities with different talents, some more artistically inclined, some more intellectually inclined, some more disinclined, and all of our sensual engagements, no matter what our proclivities are, our favorite type of activities are, they can be dovetailed and utilized in the service of the Lord. Just like you just look around, you see so many beautiful paintings, you see such nice decorations, you see the beautiful form of the deities. All of that sensory import is dovetailed in the service of the Lord, and therefore is purifying for us. Whereas in another environment or in another situation, all of the sensory import one thinks is just for me and my pleasure, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. But point being that Krishna has those he's the source of all the senses, the transcendental senses, and everything that we have can be utilized in the service. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada uses this example often when he's comparing the different types of processes of self-realization. Or for someone who adheres to the impersonalist philosophy, then what's their sadhana? What's their practices to reach their perfection in the so-called impersonal conception of life? Is they have to, remove all the distractions of the mind, perhaps maybe meditate on what? Nothing, or a void, or a lamp, a candle flame, or a green dot, or whatever. And, good luck with that, how long that can last for. But for a devotee who comes into the temple, they say, oh, can you help cut up the sabjis? We're making an offering for Krishna. Oh, can you help decorate the temple room? We're having a festival. Oh, can somebody engage in service to the deities? Oh, can someone help with the college preaching? You know, it's so many different varieties of things to absorb your mind, and according to your propensity and proclivity and the talents and this and that, all of that can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord, and very easily one can be pulled along in advancement in Krishna consciousness. And that's the point. It's the process is so the goal is so much higher and elevated, and the process is so much easier to engage in. Okay, someone else continue to read, please. In the back, you didn't get a chance. Would you like to read now, please? And can you tell me what your name is? Are you Charles? Harry. Okay, thanks.
Originally, since all the senses are produced of the Lord's reservoir of senses, the sensual activities of the material world are to be purified by the process of devotional service. And thus, the perfection of life can be attained simply by purifying the present position of our material activities. And the purifying process begins from the stage of being liberated from the conception of different designations. Every living entity is engaged in some sort of service, either for the self or for the family or for the society, country, etc. But unfortunately, all such services are rendered due to material attachment. The attachments of the material affinity may be simply changed to the service of the Lord. And thus, the treatment of being freed from material attachment begins automatically. The process of liberation is therefore easier through devotional service than by any other methods. For in the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is said that one is subjected to various kinds of tribulations if one is impersonally attached.
Let me help you with that one. Klesho dikaratas tesham avyakta shakta chetasam. So, can somebody help with the summary of what was just read by Harry? Or Harry, would you like to summarize it?
Yeah.
Things that struck you, or comments that you have, or maybe some questions.
Yeah, I think so. For people in this world, the default, by default, they're serving material causes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And what happens for that default service? Satisfaction, happiness, bliss, and progress?
No.
Oh, sorry. I misunderstood yet again. What happens?
They're all temporary, so.
Yep.
And somehow they have to turn to devotional service.
Yes, yes, which is similar to what we were saying previously, what Hrishikesha, that all of the things that we're desiring and entangled in and endeavoring for, etc., in the material world can be properly utilized in the process of devotional service. Any other feedback from this last section or any of the sections? Comments? Prabhupada Priya. Thanks. I was hoping you'd have something to add.
He's kind of saying that it's very natural to just be busy in this world doing something for someone else. And so instead of doing those things for, just temporary mundane causes, just do those things for Krishna. Just transfer your energy from those objectives to higher objectives. Instead of serving the lower mundane things, serve the higher spiritual things. Because you're going to do something anyway, so just do it for Krishna. And that way we get purified and liberated and we become happy.
Yeah, thanks. And hold on, Jagannath. No, Nishinga, sorry. And it seems like what you were just saying, it just seems like such an easy transition, isn't it? Instead of doing the things for a mundane cause or extended social circumstances or whatever, do them for Krishna. But at the same time, it takes a lot of endeavor to switch, Some things are quite easy or appear more easy, but to get our whole consciousness switched, that's our goal, to get our whole consciousness 100% switched to serving Krishna through the process of sadhana. And that reminds me of one thing that I'm remind me that, sadhana. Okay, Ms. Ringo, what would you like to add or contribute?
Question for you. Going back to how you're talking about Krishna likes variety and that there's like ignorance in the mentality of division. Well, I was thinking, I mean, don't we talk about like Varnashram all the time and 4 different types of divisions? Like even for service, there's different branches. That's question number 1.
I don't get why there's a question. You want to? What's your question about that? Because Krishna likes variety, so people who have different propensities and tendencies, like they're studious, this and that, in the Brahminical way. They want to protect people. They're more in the Kshatriya way. So, what is your question? A little bit more specific, please.
Okay. My question is in question form. Is there ignorance in that form of division as well?
Oh, okay. Thanks. I missed that part. Okay, thanks. Is there ignorance in the form? Well, it depends on the individual in the sense of if a person born in, let's say, a Brahminical family and is engaged in Brahminical activities, if they're thinking that because which is the higher rung of the social system, if they're thinking this is me and I am in the higher stage, therefore I am better, then there can be ignorance in there. But the system itself, having the divisions of the people who are inclined like that, Brahminical, Kshatriya, or workers or whatever, that system isn't defective in that sense. But because just like you take the Varnashram system is also compared to the body, the social system of the body. So if the arms are thinking that we're the most important and therefore we're not going to do anything, I'm not going to feed the mouth that food stuff, I'm just going to, we're doing all the work and the mouth is just sitting there eating, that's not fair. So if they're seeing a division like that, then there's a problem, especially if they don't feed the mouth with food and then just kind of fade out after a while and can't do anything. So how did they gain by that? But if they see, like, so again, the example, a Brahminical person sees that, yes, my service is to, and, follow the Lord as best as I can and enlighten others about it, others about him and his service and their position as servants of the Lord, then they're all working cooperatively. And in and of itself, it's actually aids in the perfection of everyone else. Does that help?
That's helpful. It sounds like you have to be very careful not to let false ego get in.
And it's not a question of just one time. You have to be very careful not to let your false ego get in, because it's there. It's the big monster in the closet that's there all the time, even to the point where you think, oh yeah, I'm just a servant of God. Well, actually, I'm the best servant of God because look at what I'm doing. And and I know I'm supposed to be humble, and I'm so much more humble than that person. Look at how it's always there. The trick is always there to, but Krishna is very kind. He's always giving us reminders and pokes. Papa Priya, did you want to add anything or clarify anything to that? I'm picking on her because I heard today's her last day here again.
I guess just based
Till
on
the next time.
Based on his question, I was thinking of the concept of unity and diversity.
Yes.
That Krishna likes variety, and so he makes everyone an individual, right? There's not a single soul that's the same as another soul, right? Just like there's no two snowflakes the same, there's no two fingerprints the same. He makes us all different because he likes that variety. But then he also intends for us to cooperate and understanding our unity, that we're all servants of Krishna, that we're all connected to him. And also our unity of purpose is to please him, to our collective cooperative endeavors.
Thanks. Did you have another one also?
That answer was really helpful. for my next question, where he says every living entity is engaged in some sort of service, self, family, society, country, etc. A lot of times preachers like to say, or you're going to serve your dog, which I don't like that one, because I think dogs are humble servants and have more forgiveness.
You have a better vision.
Yeah, than a lot of people do. But so I'm one, and then he said that those are all material, and we need to kind of like flip that, and everybody be in service of the Lord. But I'm wondering, is like he trying to say that with all these duties that we should like dovetail them into Krishna consciousness, or would it be better if like we all abandon all our material service attachments? And
You have a very good question that comes up often in different forms. So serving the Lord does not mean that we're not serving anybody else. I'm just going to serve the Lord, and everyone else, I'm just going to step on their head and get out of my way, this and that. I'm going to get rid of my family because they're just material. I'm going to, this and that because it's just material. No, actually, it means a proper mentality. Even serving my dog, serving the dog. Okay, he's a spirit soul. He needs his basic this and that. Let me, whatever. But doesn't mean, okay, now I'm not going to feed the dog. Now I'm not going to feed my family. Now I'm not going to, it doesn't, sometimes it's called like a fanatical conception. We have this fanaticism. Oftentimes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's explained in his Madhurya Kandambani that there's a particular type of enthusiasm that a freshly recruited enlistee sometimes has. And when they get a little bit of understanding, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, I'm his servant, I've been in illusion, and now I'm going to serve him, and therefore I'm not going to be nice to my kids or my parents or this or that because they're all in Maya and this and that. It's called utsahan, which is a good quality, enthusiasm. What's called mai. There's an illusion. It's false enthusiasm. Think, like one could perhaps. Nah, I'm not going to say that.
Ours is downstairs right now, and the dump downstairs.
Yeah, and I pulled in. I saw those cards in front of the dumpster. I saw naughty, naughty, naughty. Potty cleaner. That's okay. That's important. It's not that because we're in the Bhagavatam class that. No, anyway. Okay. All right, Krishna. Thank you.
Don't pay attention to the material.
Right. Right. That's it. I'm coming into Krishna's now. That's material. Okay, sorry. Okay. Illusion. I forgot what I was going to say. Didn't take much, did it? False conception. Utsahanmai, thank you. That's false enthusiasm. Thanks. We have that. A false sense of enthusiasm that, okay, now I've learned all my prayers. I know how to pay my obeisances. I know the prasadam prayer. I know this and that. And this person just came in and still he's been here 3 days and he still doesn't know those prayers. What a dumbbell. You know what I mean? That's not the mood is, oh, let me try to, facilitate, help, encourage, whatever, etc., etc. Did I catch anything there that, sorry.
My questions are cleared up. Thank you.
For now, but oh yeah. And I was going to actually it's time. Okay, just do a little bit of perspective where we are. Second canto, okay. Second canto, the Bhagavatam, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, is explaining the different types of sadhanas, different types of practices one can execute in order to achieve perfection in the different types of fields. So going back, first canto talks about adhikari, the qualification one has to hear. Like, for example, in the first canto, Maharaj Parikshit's qualification to hear from Sukadeva Goswami has been expressed. Sukadeva Goswami's qualification to speak the Bhagavatam was expressed, and etc., etc. And Vyasadev's qualification in his meditation on the Supreme Lord and how and the revelation that he got to compile the Vedic literature, that's expressed. Now, Parikshit Maharaj's first canto, he's asking what? basic question. What's the duty of a person to die? Now. So then Sukadeva Goswami begins with explaining the whole process of creation. He doesn't. So Maharaj Puri could ask, "What's the duty of a person about to die?" Sukadeva Goswami does not start with the goal, the ultimate goal of hearing about Krishna's pastime. He doesn't start there. He starts with, building up the information so that one can actually understand that goal of serving Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan is the highest goal. And now we have all the background information. And so he's starting here in the second canto talking about, there was a verse that said, if you want this, then you have to worship the demigods. If you want this, then you have to do that. If you want this, whatever the desire is, if you worship the right person, you'll get some more qualification. But ultimately, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, then all those things will be accomplished normally, naturally. So this second canto will continue to talk about different austerities, practices, whatever sacrifices people make when they consider something as the goal in their spiritual life. Different types of goals. Just a little overview on that. And we're over time. Thank you. Any other quick comments or questions? Jai. Oh, yes. Sundari Leela. No? Did I get it? Wow. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I had a thought on the Varnashram because
Okay.
I didn't have a thought. Or Srila Prabhupada had instructions, and I just read it. He said, and it was interesting to me because he said that the Varnashram system is not a permanent thing. It's a means for gradual elevation. So including the four Varnas, which means Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana, their qualities gradually improve towards more sattvic and spiritual.
Yes.
And it is more and more conducive for spiritual realization. So, but he also says that by some chance, a devotee gets born in a Shudra family, but by the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of the Lord, he meets a pure devotee, and he can become completely purified and becomes a pure Vaishnava. And a Vaishnava's position is higher than a Brahmana. So those are just kind of like a framework for each person to work, to consider and work from, but it's not like we don't identify with it. That's not us.
Very good. Thank you. Very nice addition. Papa Priya, you get the last one.
On this topic, because I was trying to sing this question, should we give up these, mundane occupations and what are we supposed to do? So it's different levels. Like right in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that don't tell people to stop working.
Yeah.
Because they're materially attached and that's what they identify with. And if they're going to be totally confused and not know what to do with themselves if you tell them to just quit work and serve Krishna. So for people who are, attached to that and in the modes of ignorance and passion, just let them go on doing their duties and they'll get gradually purified by duty. But then he says that, that all of those, in Bhagavatam, he says that your occupational duty is meant to please the Supreme Personality of God, right? Samsiddhi or Haritoshanam. So teach them to do your duty, but do it for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Yat karoshi yadashnashi. Do everything as an offering for the Lord. And then you get to a certain stage where you're like, well, if everything is supposed to be an offering to the Lord and everything is for the Lord's pleasure, then let me see if there's something higher that I can do rather than just going to work every day. And then Narada Muni says, Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujahare bhajana pakvo tapatet tito yadi. That he says that if you give up your varnashram duties for the sake of engaging exclusively, fully in pure devotional service to the Lord, then there's no loss. Even if you fall down, there's no loss. It's better to at least try that than to perform your occupational duties perfectly.
Yeah.
So,
What's
but
the-
it's kind of like a progression.
Yes, yes.
So we have to be honest with ourselves and what our needs are, what we're ready for, what we can really do.
Okay, one quick thing. You have a quick thing?
Yeah, the Varnashram means after attaining 50 years, then you're want to reach the near the God, so you leave everything, family, everything, and staying in the forest or in the ashram, right?
Yeah. That kind of story, yeah. But there's a lot more to it too.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you very kindly. Thank you for your all kind attendance. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.